Thank you, Nina and Ricky. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alma Angeles for NET25 World News. On tonight's headlines. President Donald Trump has proposed that the U.S. take control of the Gaza Strip, aiming to redevelop it into a resort destination. This plan has faced opposition from Jordan and other Arab nations due to concerns over the potential permanent displacement of 2 million Palestinians.
It's not a complex thing to do. We will have Gaza.
What does that mean?
No reason to buy. There is nothing to buy. It's Gaza. It's a war-torn area. We're going to take it. We're going to hold it. We're going to cherish it.
Some people say this is ethnic cleansing. You won't be able to force them to leave their land.
We're moving them to a beautiful location where they have new homes, where they can live safely, where they'll have doctors and medical.
Well, again, this is something that we, as Arabs, will be coming to the United States with something that we're going to talk about later.
President Marcos Jr. and Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet met at Malacanang to strengthen ties and signed 8 key agreements aimed at boosting trade, investment, and food security.
I am pleased that we have come to an agreement to pursue stronger collaboration in agriculture and in agribusiness.
Our multilateral cooperation, Cambodia underlines the importance of upholding ASEAN unity and centrality, especially at times of conflict and geopolitical dynamics. As the Philippines assumes ASEAN chairmanship in 2026, I assured President Marcos of Cambodia full support.
Russia has released American teacher Mark Fogel after nearly 4 years in detention. Fogel from Pennsylvania was arrested in Moscow for possessing medically prescribed marijuana. The terms of his release remain unclear, but the Trump administration suggests this could signal progress toward ending the conflict in Ukraine.
In terms of the war, 1.5 million soldiers, young people have been killed.
I've met many of them.
Yeah, and it's a terrible thing going on, so we want to get that done. I think this could be the very important element. You could be a big part of it, actually, because it could be a big, important part of getting the war over.
Plus, shoppers across the U.S. are facing higher egg prices and purchase limits due to a tightening supply chain exacerbated by an ongoing bird flu outbreak. And the news starts now. And back to our lead story here on NET25 World News. President Trump has unveiled his plan for Gaza during talks with Jordan's King Abdullah at the White House. The proposal faces opposition from Jordan and other Arab nations over concerns it would permanently displace 2 million Palestinians. Tamasai likeness for more.
While the two were in the Oval Office, King Abdullah sidestepped questions on whether Jordan would take in displaced Palestinians.
Well, I think what we said, I have to look at the best interests of my country. I think the president is very happy that we do this thing with 2,000 children as quickly as possible.
King Abdullah says Jordan will accept 2,000 Palestinian children suffering from cancer and other serious illnesses for treatment. But Trump insists all Palestinians from Gaza should be relocated to Jordan and Egypt.
I believe we'll have a parcel of land in Jordan. I believe we'll have a parcel of land in Egypt. We may have someplace else, but I think when we finish our talks, we'll have a place where they're going to live very happily and very safely.
That's not likely to happen. Hours after the meeting with Trump, King Abdullah posted on X that the unified Arab position is that Gaza will be rebuilt without displacing the Palestinians. He adds that addressing the dire humanitarian situation should be the priority for all. King Abdullah is in a tough position. Jordan relies on the generosity of the United States. It's received billions of dollars in foreign aid since the 1950s. Trump responded to a question of whether he would cut the financial lifeline to the region.
No, I think we'll do something. I don't have to threaten with money. We contribute a lot of money to Jordan and to Egypt, by the way, a lot, to both. But I don't have to threaten that. I think we're above that. I do believe we're above that.
But the president presses on with his dream of owning Gaza. He now says the U.S. will not be buying the territory, but will just take it, leading to this bizarre exchange with reporters.
You said before that the U.S. would buy Gaza, and today you just said we're not going to buy Gaza.
We're not going to have to buy. We're going to have Gaza. We don't have to buy. There's nothing to buy. We will have Gaza.
What does that mean?
No reason to buy. There is nothing to buy. It's Gaza. It's a war-torn area. We're going to take it. We're going to hold it. We're going to cherish it.
And Mr. President, take it under what authority? It is sovereign territory.
Under the U.S. authority.
It's not likely Arab countries, and for that matter, most of the rest of the world, will recognize that authority that Trump claims to have. Jordanian Foreign Minister Ayman Safadi says there's an Egyptian-led Arab plan to rebuild Gaza without displacing the Palestinians. When asked by reporters whether he wanted to see the U.S. own Gaza, King Abdullah diplomatically deflected.
Well, I think, as I said earlier, the president is looking at Egypt coming to present their plan. As I said, we will be in Saudi Arabia to discuss how we can work with the president and with the United States. So I think let's wait until the Egyptians can come and present to the president and not get ahead of ourselves.
But for now, any talk of rebuilding Gaza may be moot. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is on the verge of ending a ceasefire with Hamas. He says unless the hostages are released by noon Saturday, fighting will resume. Netanyahu has been egged on by Trump, who said on Monday that the ceasefire should be cancelled if the hostages are not freed. Any hope of ending this conflict soon so that Gaza and his people can rebuild their territory seems to be fading quickly. Thomas I. Likeness, NET25 World News.
Mark Fogel, a Pennsylvania teacher, has finally returned to the United States after spending 3.5 years in a Russian prison. Fogel was arrested in August 2021 at Moscow's Sheremetyevo airport when a police dog alerted authorities to his luggage, which contained a small amount of medically prescribed marijuana. Despite this, he was sentenced to 14 years in a penal colony. This morning, Fogel's 95-year-old mother, Malfine, received a surprise call from her son, sharing the joyous news of his release. She expressed her overwhelming relief and anticipation, stating, "I just need to get him home and hug him and hold him. There'll be a lot of tears." The White House confirmed that Fogel's release was part of a negotiated exchange with Russia. President Trump tweeted about his promise to Fogel's mother during a rally. "When I saw Mark Fogel's mother at a rally, she said, 'If you win, will you get my son out?' I promised her. She's 95 years old, and I said, 'We'll get him out.' We got him out pretty quickly." When asked about the specifics of what the U.S. offered in return, Trump did not provide details but emphasized the importance of ending the war in Ukraine.
What were the terms of this deal, Mr. President?
Very fair, very fair, very reasonable. Not like deals you've seen over the years. They were very fair. And I think that's going to lead, and somebody else is being released tomorrow that you will know of. But we wanted to get this done, very important. And Steve wanted to actually fly over and get Mark and get him home properly, because it could be a pretty tough trip. In terms of the war, 1.5 million soldiers, young people have been killed.
I've met many of them.
Yeah, and it's a terrible thing going on, so we want to get that done. I think this could be the very important element. You could be a big part of it, actually, because it could be a big, important part of getting the war over with Ukraine. And we appreciate President Putin's what he did. He was able to pull it off for you, right? He was able to pull it off.
And I also should make mention that President Putin was very generous and statesmanlike in granting me a pardon. I mean,
The exchange that facilitated Fogel's release was led by Trump's special envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, marking the first visit by a senior U.S. official to Russia since the invasion of Ukraine began. Trump mentioned having discussion with Vladimir Putin, but did not specify when these took place.
Did the U.S. give anything in return?
Not much. No, they were very nice. We were treated very nicely by Russia, actually. I hope that's the beginning of a relationship where we can end that war and millions of people can stop being killed. They've lost millions of people. They lost, in terms of soldiers, probably 1.5 million soldiers in a short period of time.
Fogel's family expressed immense gratitude for his return, highlighting the emotional toll his imprisonment had taken on them.
I feel like the luckiest man on earth right now. And
China is firmly opposing any country provoking and threatening China's sovereignty and security in the name of freedom of navigation. This, according to the Chinese Foreign Ministry today. In response to the transit of U.S. naval ships through the Taiwan Strait. Now, on Wednesday, China's military deployed naval and air forces around Taiwan for combat readiness patrols and training missions after 2 U.S. Navy ships sailed through this sensitive Taiwan Strait this week, in the first such mission since President Trump took office last month. The U.S. Navy confirmed 2 of its ships carried out a Taiwan Strait transit, calling it routine despite an angry reaction from Beijing. The Navy said the vessels were the Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer, USS Ralph Johnson, and Pathfinder-class survey ship USNS Bowditch. The ships carried out a north-to-south transit on February 10 to the 12th. The U.S. Navy, occasionally accompanied by ships from allied countries, transits the strait about once a month. China, which claims Taiwan as its own territory, says the strategic waterway belongs to it.
The Eastern Theater Command of the Chinese People's Liberation Army has already responded, and I would like to emphasize that Taiwan is an inalienable part of China's territory, and that the question of Taiwan is not a matter of freedom of navigation, but a matter of China's sovereignty and territorial integrity. China firmly opposes any country provoking and threatening China's sovereignty and security in the name of freedom of navigation.
President Marcos Jr. and Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet met at Malacanang to strengthen ties and signed 8 key agreements aimed at boosting trade, investment, and food security. The deals include eliminating double taxation, enhancing agricultural cooperation, advancing digital transformation, and promoting tourism through a 2024 to 2028 program. The leaders also agreed on initiatives to prevent cultural property trafficking and improve technical vocational education. With these agreements, both nations aim to deepen collaboration and unlock new opportunities for shared growth and prosperity.
We also discussed comprehensively our determined efforts to combat transnational crimes and protect our communities from unscrupulous individuals who take advantage of the industrious nature and strong sense of family of our peoples. We are also pleased with the growing partnership between our militaries and uniformed services. I anticipate the continued exchange of best practices and knowledge to support our mutual aspiration for regional peace and security and our collaborative efforts in enhancing our resiliency. On trade and investment, we welcome our formal cooperation in the avoidance of double taxation and the exchange of best practices in competition law that the Philippines and Cambodia both consider as critical to entice and facilitate greater bilateral investments and economic activities between our business sectors. We also see Cambodia as an important partner in ensuring food security. I am pleased that we have come to an agreement to pursue stronger collaboration in agriculture and in agribusiness.
Our multilateral cooperations, Cambodia underlines the importance of upholding ASEAN unity and centrality, especially at times of conflict and geopolitical dynamics. As the Philippines assumes ASEAN chairmanship in 2026, I assured President Marcos of Cambodia full support. In closing, I look forward to continuing work with President Marcos to expand our partnership and mutual prosperity, and hope to welcome Mr. President to Cambodia in the very near future.
What's behind the surge in U.S. surveillance over Mexican drug cartels? The Pentagon confirms that military spy planes have carried out at least 18 intelligence gathering flights in just 2 weeks, far more than usual. And it's not just happening near the border. These missions are reaching deep into Mexico. Take a look. The U.S. Navy's P-8 aircraft, with its powerful radar and the U-2 spy plane, famous for capturing incredibly detailed images from high altitudes, are among those deployed. So what kind of intelligence are they gathering, and how could this impact cartel operations? These flights have been cruising along the U.S.-Mexico border from bases in California, Arizona, and Texas, with one mission even reaching. These flights have been cruising along the U.S.-Mexico border from bases in California, Arizona, and Texas, with one mission even reaching into Mexico's Baja Peninsula. Interestingly, military experts say this is the first time the U-2 has been used to monitor cartel activity in Mexico. On the ground, U.S. Marines are also hard at work reinforcing the border wall with more fencing, especially as migrant crossings have dropped by nearly 80%.
My best option is to return to my country. I feel safe there despite everyone knowing there's an economic crisis. But you're in your country. You feel safe. It gives you a lot of security being in your country. In another country we suffer. Being a migrant is not easy. They deny us rights. We run risks because we're kidnapped. We're extorted.
Meanwhile, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum is calling on the U.S. to team up with Mexico's military to tackle these drug cartels, but insists that Mexico's sovereignty must be respected.
Hay una parte importante que ellos tienen que hacer en su propio país.
There is an important part that the United States must play in their country in fighting drug trafficking. What's the final distribution on the streets? Aren't there cartels there? Or organized crime? We collaborate, coordinate, we meet, and work together. But we will always defend our sovereignty. So there's an important part they must play there, a very important part. And then there's the Attorney General's memo. It's a general decree with references, but it's not very understandable. We must wait and see how it will translate.
She pointed out that any U.S. agents working in Mexico needs permits processed through Mexico's security cabinet, and emphasized the importance of coordinating efforts and sharing information.
Todos los agentes de alguna agencia de Estados Unidos requieren un permiso de México.
All agents of any U.S. agency must have a permit from Mexico to be in Mexico. This is processed through the security cabinet, and there must be a joint coordination, collaboration, and shared information. This happens in any country in the world. So it's part of the coordination process. We coordinate and collaborate, but, as I've said, they must act in their own country too.
Como llevo mucho tiempo diciéndolo, que actúen también en su propio país.
As military spy planes take to the skies, it'll be interesting to see what other measures the Trump administration rolls out in its crackdown on drug cartels and violent gangs at the southern border. And the news continues here on NET25. We'll be right back. Egg prices are soaring, and stores like Trader Joe's are now limiting customers to just 1 dozen each. The culprit? A bird flu outbreak that's killed millions of hens, tightening supply and driving up costs. Yet another hit for shoppers already struggling with rising prices. Take a look.
Shoppers in the U.S. are seeing egg prices soar and purchase limits imposed due to a bird flu outbreak affecting supply. Stores like Trader Joe's now limit egg purchases to only 1 dozen per customer. And it's all another blow for consumers after years of rising prices. This shopper was unhappy, but trying to be understanding.
I saw one store, Trader Joe's, that limited it to 1 dozen, but their prices were cheaper than a lot of other places. Their price, I happened to look, Theirs was $4.99, and I think Walmart's was $6 something. So I understand why they're doing it. I do understand. I'm not happy about it, but I do understand.
So far, the bird flu outbreak in the U.S. has infected nearly 70 people, mostly farm workers, since April. The H5N1 virus has also raised egg prices by killing millions of hens. Supply chain expert Matt Sutton-Vermeulen from consulting firm Kearney explains.
The price of eggs has gone up because of the supply-demand relationship. It's a highly inelastic commodity, which means it doesn't, the demand for it doesn't move when the supply is tightened. And so the price moves up, unfortunately, with it.
Authorities have also found a second strain of bird flu in dairy cattle, ramping up concerns about its spread. Experts are also worried that the virus no longer seems connected to the movement of wild birds.
Typically in the past, in the historical view of the virus, we've seen it stop when we've seen it peak and fall around the migratory flights. But we are not seeing that anymore. We are seeing a more prevalent disease state.
Last week, regulators closed poultry markets in New York City and some neighboring counties in a bid to stop the spread of the disease.
In New York, President Donald Trump's advisor, Steve Bannon, pleads guilty in state court to a fraud charge related to his fundraising campaign for the U.S. president's wall along the country's border with Mexico. Joanne Soriano has the details.
71-year-old Steve Bannon pleads guilty to one count for scheme to defraud. Bannon was immediately sentenced to 3 years of conditional release, avoiding jail time. President Donald Trump's former advisor was charged with money laundering and conspiracy. He is also accused of deceiving donors in 2019, who contributed more than $15 million to a private fundraising drive. This was known as We Built the Wall during Trump's first term in the White House. As part of his sentence, Bannon is barred from serving on a New York nonprofit for 3 years. He is also prohibited from using or selling donor data obtained as part of the scheme. Under an indictment brought by the Office of Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, Bannon had previously pleaded not guilty and was scheduled to stand trial in March. Bannon did not address the court aside from entering the plea and confirming he understood his rights. Outside the courthouse, Bannon attacked Bragg and New York Attorney General Letitia James.
The existential threat to President Trump's administration, and I mean Doge, Elon Musk, Secretary Treasury Bessent, Russ Vought, Stephen Miller, all of his people. The existential threat is right here in this city. It is the queen of lawfare. It's Letitia James. Right now, Soros has a DA that's running unopposed. He can call a grand jury at any time. He can set up criminal charges on the most bogus efforts. Letitia James runs this deal. She's got a pliant media right here, pliant left-wing media. She's got a jury pool of only left-wing radicals in the Upper West Side of this city.
James was not involved in Bannon's case. She, however, previously sued Trump for civil fraud and won a nearly $500 million judgment against him. Trump has denied wrongdoing and is appealing. The indictment said Bannon promised donors that all their money would go toward building Trump's wall. Bannon, on the other hand, concealed his role in diverting hundreds of thousands of dollars to the drive's chief executive, Brian Kolfage. Kolfage is a decorated U.S. Air Force veteran who had promised to take no salary. Kolfage pleaded guilty in April 2022 to federal fraud and tax charges. He is serving a 4.25-year prison sentence. Trump cannot pardon Bannon on Bragg's charges because they were brought at the state level.
Joanne Soriano reporting from New York, New York.
President Trump is joining forces with Elon Musk to shake up the federal workforce. Now, Trump directed U.S. agencies to collaborate with Musk on a plan to identify government jobs that can be cut and functions that can be eliminated entirely. And the goal, to create a government that's more responsive to the people, with Musk leading the newly formed Department of Government Agency, or DOGE. This initiative is raising eyebrows about its potential impact on federal services and transparency.
Regulations that President Donald Trump on Tuesday ordered U.S. agencies to work closely with top advisor Elon Musk's effort to shrink the federal workforce.
You can't have an autonomous federal bureaucracy. You have to have one that is responsive to the people.
Trump directed agencies to identify government employees who can be laid off and functions that can be eliminated entirely. Before the order was signed, Musk stood alongside Trump in the Oval Office and fielded questions from reporters.
Can you talk a little bit about how closely you're working with agency heads as you're directing these cuts? Do they have how much input do agency heads have when you're making these decisions?
Yeah, we work closely with the agency heads, yeah. So there are sort of checks in place. So it's not just us just going in and doing things willy-nilly. It's in partnership with the agency heads.
The world's richest man defended his role as an unelected official who has been granted unprecedented authority by the president to dismantle parts of the U.S. government.
Well, first of all, you couldn't ask for a stronger mandate from the public. The public voted. We have a majority of the public voting for President Trump.
The newly created Department of Government Efficiency that Musk leads has thus far provided no information on whom it employs, where it is operating, or what actions it is taking inside government agencies. DOGE posts few actual results from its work, providing only dollar figures for cuts it's claiming to make in particular agencies with few specific details. However, Musk pushed back at criticism that he and his team there have operated largely in secrecy.
I fully expect to be scrutinized and get a daily proctology exam, basically. Might as well just camp out there. So it's not like I think I can get away with something.
Trump's executive order sets forth rules requiring government agencies to hire no more than one employee for every 4 workers who leave. It compels agencies to work with Musk's team to identify large-scale reductions in force and determine which agency components may be eliminated outright. The order exempts from cuts those employees whose work is critical to national security, public safety, as well as law and immigration enforcement. The push toward mass layoffs comes after the Trump administration attempted to cajole federal workers into accepting buyout offers. That effort has been blocked by a federal judge.
Europe's tallest volcano, Mount Etna, created a stunning display as lava erupted from its Boca Nuova crater, casting an orange glow across the snow-covered summit. The Catania branch of the National Institute of Geophysics and Volcanology reported that the lava emission occurred approximately 3,000 meters above sea level between the Boca Nuova and southeast craters. Volcanologists classified this as a subterminal eruption, noting that it originated from a fracture rather than one of the main crater vents. Standing at 3,300 meters, Mount Etna holds a unique place in volcanic history. It boasts the world's longest documented records of eruptions, with written accounts stretching back to 425 BC, making it an invaluable subject for geological study. And in Hawaii, Kilauea volcano on the Big Island has been putting on quite a show lately. Now, on Tuesday at 10:16 a.m. local time, it began its 9th eruptive episode since late December. By 10:45 a.m., lava fountains from the north vent were reaching impressive heights of about 330 feet, covering roughly a quarter of the Halemai Umau crater floor. Now, this eruption is part of a series of on and off activities that started on December 23 last year. Each episode has varied in duration, lasting as short as 13 hours to as long as 8 days, with breaks in between. Fortunately, all the volcanic action has been confined within Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, posing no threat to residential areas. Now, the park has seen an influx of visitors eager to witness this natural spectacle. However, officials are cautioning about potential hazards, including high levels of volcanic gases and fine volcanic glass particles known as Pellis hair, which can be carried by the wind. Kilauea is situated about 200 miles southeast of Honolulu. For those interested in a live view of the eruption, the U.S. Geological Survey offers a live stream. And with that, we end tonight's broadcast. As we close tonight, let's remember that in times of crisis, kindness knows no boundaries. From our newsroom to your world, this is Alma Angeles. for NET25 World News. Good night.